physical dimensions wise, we work out of a 585,000 square feet building. And at this point in time, we have about 410 startups who are physically working out of the building.
Hey everyone, this is Prashant and I'll be your host for the VC10X podcast. And today we have Mahankali Srinivas Rao, also known as MSR, who's the Chief Executive Officer of T-Hub with us. An accomplished serial entrepreneur, MSR has built and scaled businesses across geographies over his 35-year stint in the IT industry. At T-Hub, he is leading one of the largest innovation centers in the world, spanning 585,000 square feet and more than 400 startups operating already within its building. In this episode, we talk about what is T-Hub, what are the different programs for startups at T-Hub, involvement of the Telangana government, how T-Hub supports startups, perspective on the Indian startup ecosystem, and lots more. So without wasting any time, let's dive straight in. Hey Srinivas sir, so good to have you on the VC10X podcast. How are you doing?
Good evening, Prashant. Good to be here and look forward to the conversation.
Very good evening, and it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show. To start things off, can we just quickly have a brief about what is T Hub? Because there is a lot of news about it that it's the biggest innovation hub, some say in India or maybe even in the world. So we'd love to hear from you directly that what is happening there and what are you trying to build there.
Sure. So T-Hub as an entity was set up back in 2015, and we moved into a new campus end of June last year. So we are by all estimates, we are India's largest incubator. We have, physical dimensions wise, we work out of a 585,000 square feet building. And at this point in time, we have about 410 startups who are physically working out of the building. We still have, we've done only 6 of the 10 floors to the interiors wise. So at full capacity, which will happen by the end of next year, we hope to be at about 750 to 800 startups working out of the building. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a very quick overview, and we can build on that, I think.
Absolutely. And from what I've learned, I think this is also a government initiative. The government is also very involved here. So we'd love to understand, is this like a public-private partnership or is it purely government initiatives? How does that work?
Sure. So Prashant, we are a public-private partnership. T-Hub is set up as a foundation. We are set up as a Section 8 not-for-profit company. And the principal sponsors of T-Hub are the government of Telangana, Triple IT, which is the International Institute of Information Technology, ISB, which is the Indian School of Business, and NALSAR, which is the National Academy of Legal Studies and Research. And then there's also an industry partner, which is TechM, Tech Mahindra. And of course, we have 4 other industrialists on the board. So we are a board-run company, you know, with and legally we are a Section 8 not-for-profit.
Awesome. Understood. And from the look of startups, how do they look at you? Is this an accelerator? Is it an incubator? Is it a co-working space? What is it?
Well, it's actually all three. Okay, so we do have, we do have, we do have a co-working space. Then, of course, we run a number of programs from stage zero to, let's say, a pre-series A, right? And also we are now launching accelerator programs as well. So we have programs for early stage startups, which is essentially around idea to MVP. Then we have a design program, and then we have a program which is for startups which have already done some level of monetization, essentially helping them with product market fit and go to market sort of thing, right? And then of course there's a funding program as well, right? So yeah, and we're just launching a new program next month, which is essentially a scaling program.
Okay. So is programs the only way to get into T-Hub? If I'm a founder, I want to start working at T-Hub, then how do I get in? Do I have to apply to these programs? Is that the only way or are there other ways?
So essentially there are multiple ways. One is So obviously we run, so we have these four flagship programs. So these typically we run about three cohorts every year for each of them. So typically 12 cohorts, and typically about 20 startups, typically get into each of these cohorts. So normally we get about 800 applications on average. So उसमें से we select 20, and so we run this three times over for each of these, right? So that's one part. So all these programs are publicly, we put them out on all social media. It's not restricted only to startups from Telangana. It is, we have now 50% of the startups we work with actually come from outside Telangana. And so we put them out on, whatever, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Meta, and so on. And, then we got a screening and selection process to get them into the program, right? So that's one part. Similarly, we also have, obviously, we have space. So not every program startup works from T-Hub. They work sometimes from their own offices, or some of them work from home, depending on the stage they are in. And similarly, not every resident startup in the building is part of our programs.
Okay, okay. So someone who's working in T Hub might not be a part of the program as well. That is also possible.
That also happens, and the other way
Okay.
around also happens. Yeah.
So basically, if someone wants to use it as a co-working space, that is also possible.
Yeah. The only thing is, caveat is, we obviously want to encourage only tech companies,
Right.
and also, obviously not service companies, but more product or platform companies.
Okay, okay. So I think the environment is controlled. Like you are controlling the environment and trying to build something that's actually helpful for everyone involved, right? Is that correct?
I don't know what you mean by controlled environment, but
Basically, not everyone can get in. Something like that. That not
yeah, so
everyone can get in.
we do go through a screening and selection process.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Okay.
want to ensure, as I said, the focus is on innovation,
Right.
and innovation is more likely to happen in the product or platform space as opposed to a services company.
Absolutely. Awesome. So I would love to understand what does it feel like to be a part of T Hub, be in there and be working on your startup? Because I've never been there, honestly. So I don't know. But would love to learn from you that if a startup comes in, what can they expect? What would be the environment? What are the people that will be around them? Give us a view into that.
Sure. So first of all, we put together a framework to try and help our startups. So we call it the six M's and two P's, right? So the six M's around, one is methodology, which is really about the program which we spoke about briefly, which is a program for idea to MVP, then a design program, then a program for helping startups which have already got some level of traction, uh, product market fit, go to market, and so on. And the last one, of course, is the angel funding part, right? So this we have. So essentially, the first M I'll talk about is methodology. The second M is about market access. So we do help both our program and not program startups with market access, because we do have a large number of corporate engagements, where essentially corporates are looking to see how they can partner with the startup ecosystem, build, essentially leverage open innovation platforms like what we are building here at TIAP. So that's the so market access could be in corporate, government, defense, and so on. And then we have the third piece is around money or capital. So we do have a small fund where currently we supported about seven startups. We are also part of the Startup India Seed Fund. Plus, we have built a strong network of angels and VCs. So about 40 plus, 40 plus networks, and networks like well-known angel networks, plus of course institutional early stage VCs, right? And then, of course, we help them with mentoring. So we have a pool of about 175 mentors who support these startups on a, bringing their experience as entrepreneurs or senior level corporate executives to the table. Then, of course, we help them with motivation and mindset. We do a lot of events, bring successful entrepreneurs to come and talk to these startups and tell them that the journey, you know, is is tough, but we've done it, so can basically motivate type of thing. And then we also help them with manpower, which is we do internship melas. So, for example, last weekend we had one on Saturday. We had about 6,000 young people apply. 2,000 got shortlisted, and while we were awaiting the final numbers, I think about 600 plus jobs are on offer.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And is T Hub just only playing the role of being the facilitator of all these engagements, people, manpower, money? Is T Hub only the facilitator, or also sometimes an investor, and T Hub also getting on cap tables of these companies, or is that not a thing?
So, as I was saying, we have a small fund. We've done
Okay.
7 investments
Mm-hmm.
through the T fund,
Okay.
and we also have done, I think, 6 or 7 investments through Startup India Seed Fund. Okay.
Okay.
Plus, as I said, we actively work with the VC and angel networks.
That's great. And would love to understand if there is any kind of thesis or sector focus that you've decided for T Hub and even the T fund that you're talking about.
Sure. So at T Hub, we have, as I said, over the last 8 years, we've incubated more than 1,200 plus startups across 30 sectors. But moving forward, we've identified a few things which we think are where we'll do, close to 50% of our work would be in those areas, which is healthcare, then enterprise tech, sustainability, mobility, and of course, new generation tech like AI, blockchain, cloud, and so on. Right? So broadly, 5 sectors. We'll not to say that we won't support others, but these 5 are where we expect to put substantial effort.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's great. And you also mentioned about the two P's framework, that is partnerships and policy, to help startups succeed. So, would love to get more perspective into that. How does that work, the policy aspect and the partnership aspect?
Sure. So partnerships, what we've done is over a period of time, we've got a lot of entities which are required for a startup to begin with. So accounting, legal, tax, patenting, digital marketing, recruiting, etc. So we have a desk where we evaluate all these partners or service providers, empanel them, and many of the services they offer is pro bono. Some of it is getting charged. Uh, Even the ones when they get it charged, it's steeply discounted compared to if a startup is individually going to go out and get, for example, cloud credits or so on, right? So that's one part. The policy part is where we work with both center and state government here to see how what can be done to incentivize the startups. So, for example, from as you know, GST has two components, a state and a central. So, can the GST of the state component be waived, for example, right? Similarly, you get a patent, you get some funding. For every new job you create, some recruitment, hiring related costs are borne by the government, and so on, right? Uh, so essentially the policies and the
Partnership.
partnerships. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And I think one of the major reasons of the success of the project has been the government intent that the government is putting into like making this a success. I remember back in 2015 when this was, starting out. I was still a kid back then, and then I remember getting the news of this, and I was excited that okay, this huge hub is getting built in India, and it's going to be amazing for startups, right?
sure.
So, and can we talk about the startup ecosystem in Hyderabad? Because I think one of the major goals of this project is to foster that culture of startups within Hyderabad, and the government is putting significant focus on that with T Hub. So, we'd love to
Sure.
learn more on that. Yeah.
So back in 2014, when TIA was conceived, and as I said, TIA became operational in 2015. We had less than 200 startups in Hyderabad. Today, we have in our state now more than 7,500 plus startups, right? And there were only two incubators. Now there are close to about 57, right? So clearly, we've created a, a fairly scalable ecosystem, where, we have a larger number of incubators and obviously a large number of startups as well.
Absolutely. That's amazing to hear. And would be great if you could talk about some of the interesting startups that are working out of T Hub and are solving very interesting problems there.
Sure. Today we have, so for example, our some of our more successful startups are, space tech. For example, we have Skyroot, which is India's first, private sector player to actually send rockets into space. We have Dhruva Aerospace, which is sending, launching satellites into orbit. Then, of course, we have companies like Adonmo. We have a number of other companies in the healthcare space, like Blue Semi. We have a number of companies in the logistics space. So, for example, Gayam Motors, which is a large manufacturer of three-wheeler cargo EV-based vehicles and so on. So we have 1,200. So if I start reading out the numbers, we will not get the show done. So I just limited it to about five or six.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like many of these startups that you mentioned are hardware and deep tech startups. So does T Hub also provide the facility to for these startups to experiment and build out their hardware products?
Sure. So we have a sister entity, which is called T-Works, literally next door to T-Hub. And this is India's largest prototyping center. So today we have, in this center, which is a 120,000 square feet facility, we have, equipment for, laser engraving. We have 3D printing machines. We have CNC machines. We have, a ceramic studio. We have a wood shop, and so on. Right. So anyone. So the idea is you ideate and incubate at T Hub, and you prototype at T Works.
Got it. Yeah, that's great facility you've set up there. And talking about the evolution, because now I think ever since the inception of T Hub, it's been around 7 or 8 years now. So how have you seen things evolve from then to now, and how do you think shaping up from now on for T Hub and majorly the startup ecosystem in Hyderabad?
Sure. So I think T Hub has become a, exemplar, a role model. So what we are building at T Hub is not just, we are not yet another incubator, but we are building a ecosystem, right? So we have obviously the startup entrepreneurs, then we have the large companies whom we work with, basically the corporate innovation programs, and through that facilitate startup access and so on. And then, uh, in terms of how we are bringing all the ecosystem players together. So we have corporate, we have government, we have industry, we have, academia, we have industry bodies. So, for example, CII is National Center for Innovation, Startups, and Entrepreneurship, is located at T Hub. We also have the funding ecosystem. So we have two of India's largest banks, private banks. Similarly, we have seven VCs now who work from T Hub. So essentially, the whole idea is to provide a, end-to-end ecosystem for a startup to make their initial, customer acquisition, funding, and all of that become a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking on the challenges side, I'm sure that from the starting of the project until now, you must have faced a lot of challenges in bringing this up and running. So, can you mention some of those challenges and how you solved them, and also some of the challenges that you're still facing and trying to figure out the answer to?
Sure. So first of all, I think our role at T-Hub is we are an ecosystem builder. Okay. We are also a catalyst. We are a facilitator. So our motive is really combining, social good with entrepreneurship, and helping our entrepreneurs become, let's say, almost focus on profit with purpose, right? So that's what we are trying to do. I think we've made substantial progress. We've had some challenges. So, for example, this building was delayed by a couple of years because the pandemic. We were supposed to be here by 2020, got delayed by 2 years because of the pandemic and so on. And then, of course, in terms of funding, while we made a lot of progress in terms of getting fund investors from across India, but always there's room for doing more. Right? Yeah. So broadly, I would say we've done well. At the same time, it's you can never stop, and there's always room to do a lot more.
Yes, I absolutely agree, and I love how Hyderabad is kind of spearheading the way and showing other states of the world as well a way on how you should be fostering your own ecosystems of startup. Because I believe if every state contributes and acts in a way that Hyderabad is and the government of Telangana is serious about this, I think we'll have a nation which is maybe number one in terms of startups. And like you said, you have startups coming from outside Telangana and from other states as well, 50% ratio, right? So, would love to learn about how do you see the entire ecosystem of Indian startups, broadly speaking, shaping up versus outside startups from the US. So, do you think that the Indian startups are reaching that level of maturity and sophistication in how they operate, and can India become the most sought after startup ecosystem of the world? And how soon do you think that is going to happen?
Sure. So first of all, I think we can, when you talk about size and scale, today India has now the third largest ecosystem, anywhere in the world behind the US and China. We've made remarkable progress in the last, let's say, last maybe decade and a half, last 15 years or so. We now have close to 140 billion dollars of funding. We have close to about $100,000, 100,000 plus startups. We have 110 or 115 unicorns and so on. So we've made a lot of progress. I think moving forward, I think you'll see more focus around you know areas which are for example, around deep tech, around sustainability, etc. Some of our There is also a lot of so we have close to 7,000 deep tech startups today, right? That number would have been minuscule or almost non-existent, 10 years ago. So I think you're now starting to see more cutting edge work done, not just imitation of models borrowed from the West, right? Yeah, and I think India needs more startups because we are a large country with 1.4 billion people. So while we can be proud of the fact that we've got you know 98 plus thousand plus startups. It's also we probably need maybe 5 to 10 times that number. For India to become a very strong you know strong economic entity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. And like looking at the future for T Hub, how fast do you think this is going to scale ahead? Do you think the full building is going to be occupied within maybe the next 2 3 years?
No,
How do
by the end of next year, it'll be full.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. And how do you think this shaping up going ahead? Do you think it's going to be scaling even beyond that once the building is full?
Yes.
Then,
Broadly, see, as I said, the physical infrastructure is important.
yeah,
Uh, for us, it's much more than just the physical infrastructure.
right, right,
It is about how are we enabling market access, how are we enabling product market fit, okay, how are we creating more job giving entrepreneurs as opposed to many young people wanting to go out and work work for somebody else, right? So I think creating that sense of agency, obviously focus on increasing the funding ecosystem, etc. But otherwise, I think broadly this is what we'll be doing.
great, great. This is awesome. And to end this with, allow me to ask you 5 quick questions about the fund that you are investing through.
Sure,
This will be about what are your investment criteria and stuff.
sure.
That works. Awesome.
Yeah,
So this will basically have quick question and answers. You don't need to give detailed answers, right?
sure.
Awesome. So the first one is what are the sectors and regions you invest in?
So typically, our focus at T Fund is to invest more in early deep stage, deep tech, early stage deep tech firms.
Right.
So we have, so we've invested in a robotics arm company. We've invested in a company which is building vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. So we'll pick up areas where, which are relatively, untested, almost white spaces. And wherever startups are building interesting solutions, we'll try and see, how we can, support them.
Right. And this is throughout India, right?
Sorry.
You invest throughout India through this
Yeah,
fund.
yeah. Through Startup India Seed Fund, we do it across India. Telangana Fund,
Okay.
of course, we do it limited to startups
Okay.
which are in Telangana.
Great, great, great. And what's the typical stage of investment?
Early stage. For us, it's early stage. Okay, so usually startups will be bootstrapped. Next, they raise a family and friends round, and then they probably raise a pre-series A round. Typically, that's where we come in.
Right, right. Awesome, awesome. And what's the typical check size that you put in?
Anywhere between 25 lakhs to a crore for the T fund, and about 25 to 50 for
Telangana fund.
the SISF fund.
Okay.
And obviously, the criteria we use for selection is very simple. What is the problem the startup is trying to solve? What is the, how have they gone about thinking about building a solution? Have they looked at alternate approaches, etc.? And then after that, it's about you know uh, working to help them get scaled up in a short span of time.
Right. Awesome. And where can founders apply for funding or even to join one of the programs of T Hub?
Sure. So we have a mail ID called contact at t-hub.co. So you drop in your text,
Okay.
and then you can expect to get a response
Awesome.
within a,
Awesome.
within a period of 24 hours, subject of course to holidays, Sunday and
Right.
Monday.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. That's great. And last one, where can our listeners follow you and follow the journey of T Hub?
So we are on YouTube. So you'll find us at T-Hub. We are obviously on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. I think we have now more than 100,000 plus followers, for example, on LinkedIn.
That's
And that's
awesome.
all primarily driven by the social media part.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. Awesome. So thanks so much for coming on, Srinivas sir, and making time for this. And I love how government of Telangana and T Hub is taking this initiative to bring up the startup ecosystem, and the success that you've had so far is just testimony to that. Thanks so much for the work that you're doing, and all the best for going ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.